takes more than being filled with regret for spending $80 million in Bitcoin on a $20 pizza in 2013 to be a great software engineer. This is episode 231 of the Soft Skills Engineering Podcast. I'm your host, Jamison Dance.
I'm your host and never Bitcoin investor, Dave Smith.
Soft Skills Engineering is a weekly advice show where we talk about the non-technical parts of being a software developer and just speculate about what might have been if we had a time machine.
We often give time machine-related investing advice.
Yeah, that's true. There's probably some simulation someone has done to think, okay, say time travel exists, but everyone has it. How would you build a high-frequency trading platform then?
Getting your fiber closer to the exchange is no longer good enough.
Yeah, Goldman Sachs has that time machine too. They already bought up Apple in 1980.
Yeah. Turns out Apple only has one investor, and it's this guy in a basement in Ohio.
Yeah. That was kind of a weird couple years when my tech friends were millionaires briefly and then not anymore.
Because they spent $20 on Bitcoin a couple of years prior?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I knew some people that got way into crypto in the very early days So I still don't understand it, but I didn't understand it and thought it was dumb. And now I don't understand it and just think it's bad for the environment.
GPUs cranking out the heat.
Yeah, I heard someone describe cryptocurrency as using your car to solve Sudoku puzzles that you can buy heroin with. Like it spits out CO2.
Oh my gosh. That is accurate. That's like it's like an accurate answer, like an accurate analogy that tells you nothing about what it actually is.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, I know the same about it as I did before I learned that analogy. I think this is my old man yells at a cloud moment, is me just shaking my fist at Bitcoin and saying, harumph.
Saying, I wish I would have bought.
Yeah, or mined. I mean, I had some friends who got pretty into mining when it was fun and interesting and possible as a non-super megacorp with your own highly optimized data center. Anyways, that's not what this show is about.
No. But boy, do I wish it was in about 2014.
Do you want to talk about our exciting news, Dave?
Yeah, this episode is sponsored by Monday.com, which is a visual teamwork platform, and we'll tell you more about Monday.com later.
Thank you to them. I also want to thank our patrons. Thank you to these folks who are supporting the show at a level where we shout them out every single week. Thank you to Oladapo Fade, Kjaran Sveinson, Ragnar Hardison, Alexander, Microconfig.io, Nick, Travis Sanders, Evgeny Sladkowski, Dennis Bogdanov, Braden Keynes, Stephen Armand Lee, John Grant, Luke Bayless, Philip John Basile, the Agile Ventures Charity, Sean, and Vinlock. Thank you to folks who have supported us in the past. If you would like to join this group, you can go to softskills.audio, click support us on Patreon, put in the stuff that they ask you, and then wait for that sweet, sweet Slack team invite to roll on in, where you can join exciting conversations and write down haikus like, my boss quit today, should I quit today too, or am I the boss now?
Love that one. That is such a good one.
It's a good group that I am regularly entertained by.
Yeah, me too. All right, shall I read our first question?
Please.
This one comes from an anonymous listener who says, hey, Dave and Jamison, I have a problem with a more senior engineer in my project. I cannot really predict or follow their thought process. They introduce best practices about organizing code, Git branching, software versioning, etc. to the project, which is great because I like well-defined processes and I follow these processes happily. Now, there are some occasions where this engineer violates one of those processes. When they do that, I ask why, then they give me the reason, and I nod because I think that makes sense. But fast forward a little bit, and I also choose to violate the process the same way for the same reasons. During the code review, the senior engineer rejects my approach because, quote, it does not make sense. SurprisedPikachu.jpg. I love these verbal emojis and verbal file names. Oh man, it's great. Okay, I tried a few times to challenge them in these situations, but more often than not, they either stood their ground or gave the, quote, agree to disagree nod, which demoralizes me. I know that nod. Okay, so now I'm inclined to just follow what they say if the situation happens. I understand that there is some nuance for a certain thing to go a certain way, but when this happens, I am always left puzzled and spending time recalibrating the idea and approach. What is the best way to deal with these kind of people? Anyway, love the show and keep up the good work.
Thank you. So I feel like a lot of this comes down to the difference between having experience that allows you to know what the right thing to do is and being good at teaching other people. Because it's possible they could just be totally wrong too, like bad and nonsensical. But it's also possible that they have some kind of internal rules that they are following or heuristics that they are following that make sense to them, and they just haven't articulated them to you in a way that makes sense to you or that completely covers all the cases.
And maybe that's because the heuristics are actually an extremely complex neural network.
Which is, did I decide this or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen this pop up in my own career where I've tried to teach someone something and then they go off and do that thing and they come back and I say, but no, not like that.
Yeah.
And they're like, but you said to do the thing. And it turns out that there's some circumstance that's different that I didn't call out explicitly or some reason for why I think it fit in this other situation, but not in this one. But I also sometimes weigh that against how painful it is to tell someone to throw a thing away and then go back and do it in a different way. Sometimes I say like, sure, the code got worse, but at least I won't get yelled at.
At least I won't hurt anyone's feelings.
Exactly. But the feelings are better. And that's really the output of this team is unhurt feelings.
Code quality low, feelings quality high.
Yep.
I'm tempted to reach for a metaphor here that I think could be misinterpreted. So let me just start out by saying I don't think all software engineers are children. Okay? So just with that, with that backdrop, I'm going to tell you a metaphor. When I ask my children to sweep the floor, they pick up a broom, and to them, the instruction to sweep the floor is move the broom around near the floor for some period of time until my dad is satisfied. Like that, and it's like, to me, the underlying requirement was, no, I want the floor to be clean. And in fact, the method of cleaning doesn't matter to me. Like, you could reach down with your lips and suck the crumbs off the floor. I don't care. Right? Like, I said sweep the floor.
That's what my son does. Yeah. He's one.
Can he come to my house? Because I think I could use that service.
He's a little Roomba baby.
So, I think sometimes when we give instructions, it's not clear to the receiver of those instructions what really we're going for. Like I've said sweep the floor, but I don't care about the method. And so they're like, okay, well, move these bristles around for a while and I'm good to go.
The dust is in a different spot.
Yeah. And I've literally had to tell them that so many times, like, hey, when I ask you to sweep the floor, the objective is to get the floor clean, not just walk around with a broom for a while.
Yeah.
So, and I just wonder if that's what's going on here is the senior engineer has explained the processes, but has not explained the governing principles behind the processes, which I sometimes call tenets, where they've got some mental tenets, maybe even subconscious ones, that they feel override all the processes.
I think that's a smarter way of saying what I was trying to say, where there's something they didn't communicate underneath that's motivating them. And to you, it looks the same, but to them, there's deeper stuff going on here. Yeah. I've seen this happen. Oh, let's see. There's an example quite a while ago where there was a disagreement about which part of the architecture to transform some data. And the core of the disagreement was this belief I had that like you transform it as soon as it comes in, like at the outside, so that once it's inside the system, it's always in the right format. And there was this core underlying belief I had that I don't know if that's really backed up, but that was the motivator for all my reasoning. And once I figured out that's why we were disagreeing, is because I was assuming like, well, of course you want to transform the data as soon as it comes into the system. And they were like, had some other assumption they were working under, then we were able to progress.
Progress to what? Just a beautiful agreement where no feelings were hurt and the code quality is still high?
Yeah, they did it my way, which is... My feelings were super high.
Nice.
But to them, they felt like they had been trying to do a thing that made sense in their engineering experience, I guess. So I agree with you. That's what I'm saying.
Well, that's interesting. Sorry, I actually stopped listening when you said, it sounds like you said something but smarter than me. And I just have been sitting back relishing that. for the last few minutes.
Just basking in it. Well, that was the good part of it anyways. I guess what I'm seeing here, and maybe it's just not in the question, is I don't see an explanation of what the senior engineer's reasoning was for disagreeing.
Mm-hmm.
I see the question asker saying, I thought I was in a similar situation, so I tried to do the same thing. And it seems like the senior engineer just said, I'm sure there was more to it than that, though. And if I were the question asker, I would dig into it and say, okay, I think I'm in the same situation for these reasons, and this is what you did last time. Why do you feel like that is not appropriate here?
But how do you say that without coming across as super, like, confrontational?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that it has to be confrontational. I don't know that you have to disguise it. I mean, if that's really what you're doing, you're trying to learn from their experience, and that seems flattering, right? Like,
yeah,
you are the senior wise engineer and taught me this thing that I thought was appropriate here. And can you help me understand why that is incorrect or what's going on here that makes it different? That feels flattering.
So you're saying grovel a little?
If you just call them a hypocrite and say, listen, idiot, like, caught you because last time you did this thing and now you're saying do this thing and I knew you were a fraud, then
yes,
that won't work.
That won't work. But if you grovel a little, oh, wise senior engineer, you're clearly operating on a higher plane where the rules are more clear to you, but they are not clear to us underlings. Please enlighten us. Shower down your wisdom.
Descend from your throne.
Yes. I know that it hurts you to walk on the dirt that we live in, but please come down.
We will avert our eyes
yes.
to not sully your hoodie with our foul, unsenior gaze.
Unsenior.
We've made offerings of Le Croix and Costco snacks.
Oh my gosh. So, all right. So far we've been operating under the assumption that the senior engineer is acting in good faith and not just being lazy and a bad explainer, and that there is more to this situation potentially than what the less senior engineer is able to comprehend. But I would say let's just assume for the moment that the senior engineer really is just being lazy and is saying, I don't like this process because it takes extra keystrokes and I don't want to do it.
I'll tell you about a situation similar to this where I've been lazy, where this happened a few jobs ago, where there was a pretty junior developer who really wanted guidance and asked me for some feedback on a solution they were thinking of for a problem. And I was pretty busy and kind of sick of helping them. So I just said, yeah, it seems fine. And then they built it and then submitted it. And I was like, oh, this is all wrong. Like, it's wrong for this reason. And you got to do it this way. And their complaint was, but you said it was fine before. And I don't think I told them this, but the reason was like, well, yeah, because I wasn't paying attention before. I just wanted you to go away so I could do my work. But now I'm actually paying attention.
Okay, hold on. So this is like the social equivalent of technical debt. You took on some debt, right? You just kicked it.
Did.
You kicked it down the road a little, and now
I did. Yeah, I was like, future Jamison will clean this up.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
I love that guy. He cleans up all my messes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So it could be like, I mean, maybe they were just cutting corners last time because they were lazy.
Maybe.
And it's easier to cut corners. In a way, it's easier to hold other people accountable sometimes than yourself.
Interesting. Is that
like,
true for me?
If you agree to a coding standard, maybe I'm revealing too much about myself. Let's say, for example, hypothetically, there was a very rigorous deploy process that required many steps of approval, and it was important to follow that. And hypothetically, someone named Jamison really wanted to deploy without following that process, even though Jamison really wanted the team to follow that process and just
and defined that process, perhaps. Hypothetically.
Well, don't blame Jamison too much for the process. Jamison is trying their best to improve the process, but some of the process has been foisted upon Jamison. Yeah, it was way easier for Jamison to say, YOLO, if this screws up, I get fired, versus if I let someone else screw up, they get in trouble. So the incentives have been different in their case in that hypothetical situation.
Okay. So you're saying you're just so lazy.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is sometimes it's easier to justify to yourself why you don't have to follow all these extra rules that you've agreed to are important or valuable for some reason, because you know all the secret context of like, yeah. But there's this tight deadline, or this will be the consequence if it has to go through this thing, or but if you see someone else do a thing, it's easier to say, oh, we agreed to this standard, and like you don't feel the pain of the potential consequences as much potentially.
Interesting. So you're completely devoid of empathy is what you're saying. Sorry, I don't know why I keep saying
usually
these terrible things about you.
Am. Well, hey, it's not me. It's Jamison.
Oh, of course. Right.
Everybody hates that guy.
All right. So there's a chance that this senior engineer is lazy. There's a chance that you're missing some nuance, and it's your job to figure it out through crucial question asking that may involve a light degree of groveling. Have I summarized correctly?
I think so. Yeah, if you feel like they're being lazy earlier and just kind of rubber stamping your stuff, then it's sort of on you to make it important enough to get it on their roadmap.
Okay.
Like you can pull feedback earlier into the process. Yeah, because they say during code review, the senior engineer rejects my approach. Like you could get feedback on that approach earlier before code review, which is a fairly expensive time to get feedback that is, don't do it this way.
Right. The way that you spent 2 weeks doing.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's easier to say, I would like to do it this way and draw a little diagram for half an hour. And then here, it does not make sense.
Yep.
Have we answered the question?
I think so. Good luck.
Good luck. Now, I'm not going to name any names, but we have a time-honored tradition on this show of complaining about hard-to-use task trackers. However, things are changing in this world. Have you heard about Monday.com?
Yeah, I've used Monday.com. It's a work OS that powers teams to run processes, projects, and build custom workflows in one digital workspace. It's pretty cool. It's very modern. I heard you can actually develop apps that run on Monday.com now. It's super customizable.
That's right. And Monday.com is hosting an app competition for developers. They're giving away 3 Teslas and a bunch of other prizes to the winners. I'm recruiting a team to implement Doom in Monday.com, and you can ride in my Tesla if we win.
This sounds like a good chance to get in early on a growing platform. Currently, there are over 100,000 teams that use Monday.com for their daily work, and your app could be in front of them.
To sign up, go to monday.com/softskills. You can find the dates and the rules of the competition there.
I suggest you check it out today so you don't miss out. Go to monday.com/softskills.
I will read the next question. This is a short one. Do you think that a job that helps you constantly grow is more important than a job that promises titles?
Titles.
I assume promises titles means that maybe you get hired somewhere that gives you a fancy title, super mega staff Charizard or whatever. I don't know. Is Charmeleon? Is that the final one? Which one is the last one of the Pokemon?
Oh, you just said Pokemon. I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I think Charizard is the last one. I don't know. Anyways, very relevant to the podcast. Yeah, so say you get a fancy title, but the work is not really pushing you in a new direction. Or the classic trade-off is like go work at a startup where the title is person who works at a startup.
Right.
But you kind of just do everything and get all these challenges thrown at you.
And growth.
Work really hard and learn a bunch and grow. And then you leave as person who worked at a startup.
Right. Junior software associate.
Yeah. What do you think?
Oh boy, my perspective on this has changed so much in the last 4 or 5 years. I think I spent probably the first 10 years of my career thinking titles are super dumb and just do awesome stuff and everything will be fine.
Yeah, titles are things for like the man, people with suits and ties and squares and just bean counters, and we just sling code.
I also thought titles were for people who are egotistical and self-obsessed.
Like ladder climbing.
Yeah. Like I care more about you recognizing my greatness than actually being great.
Huh.
That kind of mentality.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know that I had that, but I definitely had the one that I described of like titles are just kind of hokey. It's like it's uncool to care about your title.
Yeah.
Because it's just distraction from the really important stuff.
It's like caring about the brand of jeans that you wear.
some people care a lot about the brand of jeans that they wear.
I know.
Just like some people care a lot about titles. Are you saying, okay, so in this analogy, the brand of the jeans that you're wearing is the title, but the growth here is going to be like how beefy and powerful your thighs are. And like put those beefy, powerful thighs in a big old pair of Lee pipes or Jinko jeans, they'll still look great, even if your title is Associate Turner Offer Honor, but you can produce very awesome code or build great things.
So you're saying good legs look good in any brand of jeans?
Yep. Lee pipes flatter the the figure if you can squat enough weight.
Okay.
If your thighs are 3 feet wide.
So that's a little weird, but I think I understand where the where the analogy is trying to take us. So to be clear, just to recap, we are describing how I used to feel.
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
Well, I don't know. I think I just wanted to make that analogy. Okay. It's wandered far away from any meaning or relationship to reality.
I'm sure that there's nowhere we could take that analogy that wouldn't be great, but we should probably set it aside. Yeah, so bottom line, I think, Jamison, you and I both kind of had a negative perception of titles and the pursuit of title increase.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's somewhat justified in some cases.
I actually remember a day when a coworker of mine changed their title to senior software developer on LinkedIn. And I was like, what a nerd. I remember it because I feel really stupid now. But and they were totally, I mean, they deserved it. It was just like, to my dumb brain, the idea that anyone would care enough to make their title anything real on LinkedIn was like, showed their heart was in the wrong place.
Right.
You know?
And, okay, so now this is a nuanced topic, but so how would you say that your mindset has shifted on this subject in the last few years?
Basically, as much as it can.
So you're all about the jeans and not about anything about the thick thighs anymore.
Yeah. The right jeans can have a lot of padding in them and make your thighs look thick. How do you think Batman's suit flatters his figure so much? That's true. It's mostly foam.
And if you have a lot of space, you can pack a lot of money in cash into the void in your jeans.
Yeah. So one thing I didn't realize is that titles can signal importance to people. And I had a lot of built-in signals of like, this person belongs as a software developer already. Like for better or for worse, lots of software developers are white dudes. I'm a white dude, so I fit in with that group. There's like a certain, I don't know, I like video games and
it's even a subgroup of that group is, you're kind of nerdy, you like fantasy novels.
Yeah, like there's some kind of classical markers that I fit in several ways. So I never felt really out of place or like I had to prove that I belonged. I just felt like, I can do this work and everybody should just know that I can do the work.
Which is why you were able to get by for several years with the title of Archduke of Computing.
Exactly. Yeah, cuz there was this underlying assumption that like, well, yeah, he can make fun of this because he probably knows stuff about computers. But I have realized that is definitely not true of everybody, that they do not get this built-in benefit of the doubt, or that they just might work in environments where like titles are important to collaborating with other people to signal what they know and what they're responsible for. And I just wasn't at all in that environment and assume no one else in the world was either.
Right. And if they were, they deserve what they get.
Yeah, that's what they get for being a bunch of dorks.
So what I think, just to be really specific about that last point, Jamison and I both joined huge companies in the last 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I have come to appreciate the value of both title and level. So like job family and level within that family. When I work with literally hundreds of people every month, and I just can't keep track of who is responsible for what on that many teams. Like who's the person who knows about X, Y, and Z? It's like I need an entry point into teams that I don't have a long-standing relationship with. So I look for the person with the right title on that team as a guide path, as a landing light on a runway to guide me to the right place to talk to the right people. If I had to like spend 6 months building a relationship with every member of every team I interface with, I would never be able to build anything because I work in such a complex, large environment.
Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence that when we both joined large megacorps, our ideas about titles changed. And I think some of that is dependent on the situation, but I think I just have more understanding of I mean, especially if you're from a marginalized group, like you might be discounted just because of who you are. And a title can help counteract that, where if you're, I don't know, a senior engineer already, then that might kind of break up someone's implicit bias from triggering, or help you get a little bit more respect or a little bit more support in some ways.
While I agree with everything you've said so far, I do want to point out, though, that there is also this other problem because people have chased titles so much in our industry that, and we've mentioned this a lot on the show, but the same title at two different companies can mean vastly different things. And like, I'll just give an example. I was browsing a candidate's LinkedIn profile the other day who's been in the software industry for a good number of years, but they literally had senior software engineer listed as their title at a job that they were working at while attending university, and they had no prior experience. It was like their first job, not even out of college, and they already are calling themselves senior software engineer. So it's kind of the devil's advocate side of what we've said so far, is that there has been so much title inflation and just random title assignment and non-agreement on what titles mean that it almost doesn't matter anymore in many cases.
That's the opposite of what you just said.
It is.
In my experience, it matters at my large company.
Exactly.
And there is
agreement.
Yeah, there's agreement broadly, and there is some amount of vetting where like someone would have to be pretty exceptional to get the title of senior software engineer for their first software job. Like they would have to meet a certain standard that I would kind of trust that fit.
Yeah, see, and at my company, that's just not possible, because there's no way that you have had the experience to meet the requirements to have that title at my company right out of college or for your first job. Even if you were brilliant, you just couldn't get it because you would not have had the opportunity. So I guess it's worth pointing out that titles are extremely important in large organizations where there's broad agreement. And then the value of a title, I think, decreases once you start crossing into other domains like other companies.
So we've sort of wandered far afield from the original question, which is it more important to try to grow or to optimize for a title? And that could be either within your same job, like do you try to get better at your job? Do you try and get a promotion? Or while you're doing a job search, do you pick a job that gives you the fancier title?
Right. I would say that in a good, healthy environment, let's say you're in a company and you want to decide whether to go after the title or go after growth. I think that, like I said, good, healthy company, you should go after the growth and the title will follow anyway. And I want to caveat that like crazy, because I think many, many places are not healthy in that way. But if you're lucky enough to find yourself in that kind of a situation, I would say growth first, title comes second. And if you strive for a title in a healthy environment, I think it can backfire on you.
What do you mean?
I mean, I've seen people who get so promotion obsessed that they do things that actually undercut their own success. For example, they can like kind of steal work from other team members, or like hoard certain tasks because they know that it'll look good in their portfolio, and they don't collaborate as much, or they hide information. These are very toxic negative behaviors, and I've seen that done in the pursuit of title or promotion.
So I want to believe that you've seen it done and fail miserably.
Yes.
But my cynicism is saying you've seen it done and like it just works, and just makes life worse for other people.
First of all, I've only seen it done in a couple of instances out of hundreds of observations, and in those cases, it did fail. So I don't know. Now, going up to like a bigger context of, I'm looking at jobs at different companies, or I'm comparing two jobs that have one that has a title of, let's say, principal engineer, and one that has a title of just engineer. Which one should you go for? All else being equal, I would probably go after the one with the fancier title.
Yeah. The problem is that no two jobs are equal. There's this n-dimensional space that you're comparing them on, about like field and pay and colleagues and technology and work-life balance and title and all that other stuff.
Do you like how all my answers only work in theory?
Yeah. I think in a way, if I were interested in growth, I would try to optimize for breadth of impact or breadth of responsibility. Because like you said, titles can be so wildly different at different companies. You can be a director at one company, and that means you like are on a team by yourself and do everything. And you can be team lead on another team, and your team is like 15 people. I mean, just wildly different.
I direct my code that I write to do things.
Yeah, exactly. So if I saw a title on a resume, I think the first thing I would try to understand is, but how big was your impact, or how wide was your scope of responsibility? And I try and calibrate that in my head and kind of like strip away the title malarkey.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully those correlate in some way. And it can be easier to say, like, if you want to grow your breadth of impact, it can be easier if you have titles in your past that indicate you've been growing in that way. But you can also pursue that without a title change and without a promotion. And then that sort of like builds up as credit. And then if you do finally change jobs or get promoted, you sort of cash it all in to say, look, I have all this experience, even though this wasn't my title, I ran all these projects and whatever the case is, and you kind of turn it into a title.
Exactly. And you're going to have to do that anyway, especially at the more senior levels, because there's such a lack of clarity on what a title even means for every company that you're going to be explaining yourself and what your job duties look like regardless. And I've grown very skeptical of titles when I see them, and so I just find myself asking the candidate anyway to try to get a sense for their breadth and scope of impact.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I sort of believe titles within my company, but I do not believe titles outside of my company.
But the other side of that argument is, if you have a recruiter that's looking for directors or looking for only senior engineers, then you're going to show up in the search results unless you don't have that title.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, there's that aspect as well. This is a complicated question, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe 23-year-old Jamison was right, and the really important thing in life is to be an Archduke of computing.
There's one thing that's for sure is no recruiter is searching for Archduke of computing, and if they do and they find you, you should definitely take that job.
I did not get any LinkedIn spam when I was
and that's another good point is the kinds of opportunities I get on LinkedIn are just so different depending on the title that I have. Like, my current title is actually kind of a silly title, like Archduke of Computing, but it's something else. And my LinkedIn messages have gone way down. But when it was senior software engineer and when it was director, it was just nonstop LinkedIn messages. So it definitely changes the kind of opportunities that will show up at your door.
Talking cylinder builder. I forgot about that.
I mean, it's accurate.
But is it precise?
Yeah, it's 100% precise. It's totally repeatable every time. Okay. Every time I measure it, it's right. It's like the same number.
It's perfect then. All right. I think we've answered the question.
I think so too. Good luck. It's a very nuanced field, and I don't even think we've given like a concrete answer on one or other side of this.
It depends. Gotta go.
All right, Jamison, where can people go if they want to ask us questions and get completely nonsensical, abstract, theoretical-only academic answers?
If you want the hottest tips on gene brand versus thigh beefiness, go to softskills.audio and click Ask a Question, and then we will tell you whether to buy pants or do squats, I guess. All right, we'll catch you next week.